Know me. I'm Sucharita Ishwar, and I'm the founder of Catalyst for Women Entrepreneurship. And it's a real pleasure to have you with us. And I would like to warmly welcome Pooja Kohli. She has been working with people, let me put it that way, for the last few decades, I would say almost. And she has worked with major corporations and building teams. That's really been her speciality. And also building the organizational culture. And so that really, we are fortunate to have you with us, Pooja. And also, I think what Pooja firmly believes, and which is a reality, is that even in small organizations, building a culture, a winning culture, is what really makes for success in the business, in the organization. And it also makes for attracting the best talent and retaining them in your organization. And we know that, it's the people who really make the organization and the success of it going forward. So that's why we decided we must have this topic, because it's something which many small organizations think that, okay, it will happen. Let me just get going with my business first. But this is an absolutely crucial area. And we are fortunate to have you with us, Pooja. And over to you.
I'm also Pooja. Sorry, I just joined. I didn't know what's. Sorry.
Okay, no problem, no problem. Pooja is a very common name, and I think the only difference I always say is I have the U, which is the unique factor, and that's what differentiates me with the other Poojas. So thank you so much, Sucharita, and a huge pleasure. I've also seen CWE, a brilliant initiative under you, really growing from strength to strength, right from the startup days. I also remember the presentation that you showed me in a small coffee shop in Indiranagar when you visualized. So very happy to see the long way that CWE has come, and always a pleasure to collaborate, with you and your initiatives. So as Sucharita mentioned, that it's also very heartening that, especially in the context of where we are today, the topic of culture, which is very passionate, very close to my heart, and I've been such a strong believer that I believe somewhere that the era of culture has finally come, while large corporates, very organically need to have, obviously build that, but it's really not about, being large or mid or small. Culture is so much more. It's not just, some sort of an academic word, and it's something which is to do with experience. So without much ado, I will, because it's an expert-led session, so it's a little educational, and I will share, slides to provoke, our conversation, and, sort of build the dialogue. As you all are reflecting, please feel free to use the chat window and, to bring your perspectives, because one hour never does justification for, conversations around such a deep and a complex topic. So very little about, quickly about Unfold. We are, work is really dedicated on building winning cultures, and we look at it from the space of inclusion, from the space of entrepreneurship. We've been thought leaders in this space since 2017, and also helping organizations become future ready. We also have a product which, which helps in talent transformation. In fact, we are in the launch phase. And it's a veteran team, and, we've been working all, with industry bodies as well, to sort of fuel thinking in people and change. So a quick, just a 3-point agenda for today is that how do we look at culture? How do we demystify it? it's not just a word which is there on the wall. It is a word which has many connotations. How do we demystify it? How do you make culture work for you? Because that's most important, and especially with growing businesses, the changing dynamics, a lot of things become very real time. But how do you still make it work for you? And of course, then looking at how do you leverage tools, technology, the digital, because that's really the era that we are in. I'm sitting in a remote place in West Bengal. Actually, I'm not even in Calcutta, a little out of the city visiting. And I'm sort of taking the session from there. So, but yet it is so sort of seamless. Uh, so let's really look at the times that we are in, right? And we've been hit by these terminologies since last March. The wave 1, wave 2, even COVID was was really a new term, and a new virus for us to have dealt with. And of course, beyond, and even yesterday I was part of a group discussion where organizations are preparing for the third wave. I think it is inevitable. All countries have gone through it, and scenes like this have really become part of our life. PPE suits, RT-PCR tests, vaccinations. We've been swirling in all of this over the last 1.5 years now, and of course even beyond, right? So that's really the context. It's unleashed a lot of uncertainty, unpredictability, uh, a lot of trauma, collective grief. Especially wave 2 came with huge loss, and I'm sure many of you have. I don't think there's anyone who doesn't have a story out there, of your loved one or somebody that who who was critically impacted, by this. So keeping that context in mind, I'd like to do a quick poll, and like you to select your top two values that you associate with culture as it's getting manifested today. So it's a word cloud, and just like you to pick up your top two words that you would like to associate. So the words are compassion, innovation, resilience, shared purpose, customer focus, agility, adaptability, respect, trust. We'd like you to do the first, basically the first question. We'll come to the second question, but we'd like you to first respond to the first question. Okay, I think in the interest of time, you can also respond to the second question. Okay, all responses that come in? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, yes, so compassion and resilience is really the top, 43%, followed by innovation, customer focus, and respect. Very interesting. And the word compassion seems to have really overtaken even empathy, and we'll talk about it. What do you believe is the difference between empathy and compassion? Thank you so much. Thanks for your response. So this was really the the words that you responded, and thank you so much for it. So now, before we come to really deconstructing the words, let's sort of look at how do you define culture. And really there is no one definition. It could be as colloquial or as casual as the phrase, the way we do things around here. And I've brought in phrases of how people have tried to define it. A set of shared subconscious assumptions and beliefs, because these, it is implicit, in terms of beliefs, and which is really about the mindset. Unwritten practices about communication, hierarchy, work, leadership, teamwork. So we're again talking about unwritten practices. So these are all the phrases that happen. And really, if you do, and the whole dilemma for organizations are, do you keep it subconscious? Do you keep it unwritten? Or can you make it more explicit? Because if you do not actively manage culture and you do not make the the something which is implicit more explicit, you run the risk of developing a dysfunctional culture, right? Because then culture will overtake you rather than you being, somewhere in control of the kind of culture that you would like to build within the organization, right? So now if we sort of see the word clouds, and, pre-COVID, we had a certain understanding, certain words associated with culture. And I'm so glad that, some of the words even that we had in mind has come up as, the top two. One is compassion, one is resilience, health. That's become so core, right? Health and well-being. How do you have a sense of purpose? How can you become adaptable? Of course, perceptions, attitude, beliefs, norms, vision, values are always associated with culture. But there are so many other differing and dynamic values today that are out there, which has become so much of a larger reality, for us. So that's really to bring in a very simple demystification to a complex topic. So let's really look at the second pole, which is also in terms of how is the world of work evolving? So how are you all working today, right? There was a time and place that we understood. So what work models are you adopting today? So for you and for your organizations, is it work from home, 100% virtual? And you have to select one, right? Is it more hybrid? Are you working from home and office? Or are you in a business or work which is 100% at office? Okay, so 50%, it's 100% virtual. 33% is a blend, which is almost 83%, which has virtual work as a portion, significant portion. And then we have 17% working, at office. Thank you so much. That sort of helps me to really understand the people who are there and, what work models are you. So, given this context that we've sort of, now painted really in terms of the world that we are living in today and the kind of model of work that we have adopted, let's really look at what is research telling us. And this was a global research, because over the last 1.5 years, there's been a lot of debate about going back to work, what will returnship look like. And I think after wave one, there was a lot of gung-ho in terms of unlockdown and, going back and, but today when we are sitting post wave two and really not still knowing what the future lies, these are the kind of responses that people have given where if you see the first three questions, employers should be more flexible in terms of requiring employees to go to an office, right? So 66% agree. Then I'm more productive with a flexible work schedule, 65%. I want flexibility in the amount of time I go into office, right? So if we sort of see the top three, flexibility has become a very, very core ask, a core need, for employees, for individuals, in terms of how they would like to look at, working even beyond. It's not really about the here and now when, there's been some sort of a force fit, but really in terms of, the future as well, right? So I'm going to stop here before I sort of move forward. Is this research resonating? If in the chat window, if you could, message, do you believe that even going forward, flexibility is going to be the core for you and for your teams?
Hello?
Sorry, yes.
Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Hi, this is Alex.
Yeah, speaking.
Okay.
Yeah, hi Alex. This is Carolyn here. So you called me yesterday and I was unable to talk to you.
Yeah, sure. Yes, Carolyn. Yeah, we can talk.
Sorry, Pooja, I think there was some disturbance in between.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I got that. Yes, so my question was, and keep, feel free that whether you think that flexibility is not just an immediate phenomena, but it's going to be here to stay, and whether it's a reality for you and your organization. If you could put your perspectives, in the chat window. Yeah. So, keeping that as the operating model, and that 83% of you are, using flexibility as an option today in the way you're working. 17%, and of course, every industry cannot work, obviously, from home. And the nature of work means that you would have to get into office. But irrespective, are these your people priorities? Are you looking at building a culture that works for you, for your organization, within the format of work that you're doing? How are you attracting the best talent to join your organization, whether it's a startup, whether you're already cruising as an SME founder? How do you engage and inspire people to deliver their best? How do you build a high performing team, and how do you scale and grow? Because small medium enterprises really don't have the luxury of large people management teams, and you do need to obviously grow, keeping your costs optimized, right? So these are typically the kind of pain points that we hear from CXOs, and we'll be sharing some perspectives as we go along. Okay, when we look at culture, right, and it's very easy, it was very easy to define and pick up words, but if you sort of look at all those words that we picked up, whether it was compassion, whether it was resilience, whether we say respect, these are very deep words. How do you bring that alive for the organization? How do you build an experience that brings these words alive into an individual experience and feeling? And especially for SMEs, we keep hearing this word, what are hacks? Now, can there ever be a hack for culture, right? When organizations, as they're growing, they are in having that imperative of managing costs, managing the market, managing various dimensions, and working against the clock. And a lot of it is very operational, right? But when we look at culture, can there at all be a hack? Can you ever have a hack for culture? Because culture is something which is a mid to long-term investment, and it's also about creating that experience and the value system within an organization. And can there be a hack? Is it easy? Unfortunately, it is not easy, right? There are no hacks, there are no shortcuts, and many businesses have failed if they haven't really focused on building an organization which becomes sustainable. Ultimately, it's all about the people. And if you don't build sustainability and invest in creating a good culture and bring in that investment at the right time when the organization is growing, you can lose the plot, right? So keeping that in mind, that it's not an easy task, let's sort of really look at those priorities. And it can be overwhelming. It can be that there are multiple dimensions and, oh my God, but unfortunately, you have to prioritize, within what you hear in the next few slides in terms of what can you pick up for your organization and build for it. So when we look at culture, let's look at what is the topmost priority for most companies today. So health and well-being, considering that we have been in COVID times, and it's become a very, very serious issue. It's not just having, some policy. It's not really just having a conversation around health and saying that yes, fitness is important, but it's actually investing in practices that make a person feel that, when they're working in your organization, they're not compromising their health. And across age groups today, I think that's one of the things that the pandemic has done, that health is no longer a priority only that when I become of a certain age and now I need to focus on my health. In fact, right from the younger generation, the word comorbidity and understanding what comorbidity means has brought in a lot of sensitization to saying that I need to start prioritizing my health much earlier rather than paying for it much later, right? So that's becoming a very, very serious sort of consideration, and for organizations in terms of how do they invest in it. We spoke about flexibility, right? And it's a choice that organizations will make. There are organizations which can work 100% from home, and and many of them are looking at almost having 40 to 60% of their workforces continuing to work from home. Other organizations which do not have that business model, how can you still provide flexibility? Because life has been highly stressful for people, right? And people have also lost, sometimes they have lost a parent, an earning member of their family, etc. And a lot of the elder care has fallen into, once. So how do you still bring in that notion of flexibility and allow them that time? There's a huge focus now on skilling and development, right? Building an organization which has a strong learning culture, because keeping the entire stress and fatigue, it's also about how do I learn, how do I upskill, how do I make the most of the time that I have in hand. And there is no more earlier, there used to be a period when the first things that were cut were L&D budgets, right? Because that was the easiest to be cut. But today there is a revisit, and there's a lot of research which is talking about the fact that you cannot, you cannot trade off learning in times like this, because people need to feel inspired, right? And they need to have a strong sense of shared purpose, because a lot of people have been psychologically impacted, right? They are somewhere overwhelmed and lost. There were times when we used to work with companies and people would say that, you have to come with your purpose and you have to align with the purpose of the company, right? Because the ownership was on the individual, that you have to find your meaning, you have to find your purpose. When you join us, you need to be clear as to why you're joining us, right? Today, it's a shared ownership. It's not just about putting it on the individual. Organizations have to build that space of inspiration and a shared purpose within the team, within your working team, your organization, and how do you build that vision which can become that shared purpose, because it's not a one-way street. Yeah. Any perspectives? And I've brought in about 4 elements, and I don't want to, there's so many more perspectives around culture, but I wanted to highlight some of the key stuff, the new nuances which are gaining momentum. If you have any other perspective, please feel free to, put it on the chat window and let's have a conversation around it. I'd love to hear stories of what's working for your organizations, what cultural practices are working in your organizations. What have you done over the last 12 months, to have maybe, experimented with some new thinking, new initiatives that is, sort of helping people. Yes, Vanita. Yeah.
Hi, Pooja. I actually have a question, and then I'm going to share. The question is on the slide. You have written 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that in the order of priority?
No.
Because I was surprised to see purpose below, and then
No.
the rest of it
It's not the order of priority, but health and well-being has become the top priority. So I put it up there because that's almost all studies are really showing a significant investment in health. But apart from that, there's really no priority. These are 4 points.
That makes a lot of sense because I was just, so that clarity I wanted. The second thing you were asking, is there anything else? I guess for any culture for that matter, be pandemic or no pandemic, is a mindset. What kind of mindset are you carrying? Even in pandemic, I know some people who are absolutely adaptable because I run a learning and consultancy firm. So I work with large corporates to small entrepreneurs across the globe in many countries. And based on my own personal experience of working with clients across, right from banking industry to textile industry and pharmaceutical industry and tech industries, what are the things that I've noticed is, Pooja, is as leaders, what is the mindset you carry? Because there are companies who are working without challenging the status quo, just like that, pandemic or no pandemic. And it's just going the way it is, all right, because of the loyal employees that they have. But I've also seen companies, you're absolutely right, with all health and well-being and all other stuff. What they've really done is being adaptable, quickly adapting to the change and the needs with the mindset that they have. So I think even if for all these four, even to understand that health and well-being is a priority, you need to have a growth mindset in place. So I think that is one of the key things for me personally that has worked for both me as well as, and for me as a business entrepreneur as well. I had to undergo a huge mindset where I literally didn't do any work for 15 days because I had to detox my thoughts to get into a new realm of understanding what my clients would be needing.
Sure.
So that was a journey that I took last year personally. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when you start investing in culture, you have to also invest in yourself. So culture begins with beliefs, right? So what are your core beliefs? What changes would you like to make in yourself? And that's going to reflect in the change that you want to bring into your organization. If you've had no learning, again, these are mere words, right? If you've had no learning, if you've not imbibed, and I like what you said, that 15 days you stopped work. For many of us who have that mindset. I mean, I stopped work for 2 months during COVID wave 2, and I was volunteering with a not-for-profit to help COVID patients, and I suspended all my work because for me the critical problem statement at that point was that people need help, right? And one will be able to evolve one's thinking in terms of how the future moves forward. So you have to first, because it's about beliefs, it's about values, you have to first experience it before you can bring it to the forth. And as a leader, it's your culture is set from the top, right? It's really not a bubbled up, bottom up approach. It is from the top. So it's a lot about the leaders and their values and this thing. So thank you so much for provoking that. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts from the group? Any other organization who wants to share? Yeah. Okay, so we will go forward. So now really look at, this is becoming a very, very large area of concern for many organizations because we are in a transitory phase. I mean, companies haven't really worked virtually. There wasn't any change management. A lot of it happened real time as a real time response, right? You had the whole BPO industry, which is guided by strong compliance and security measures, moving to working from home as an example, right? Many of you, if you have businesses that you could never visualize. I mean, I had an office and I just gave it up after 4 or 5 months of paying the rent because for 3, 4 years, 5 years, I nurtured the office and then I just gave it up. And so for a lot of people, they couldn't visualize that there would be a time when you don't really need to go to a physical space. But when you are working as a leader of an organization, you have a large team. It's not just about you. You have to transition the whole team, to working from, the space that is relevant. But at the same time, this entire transition has also created a lot of challenges, but also opportunities. So let's really look at the opportunity. What is the opportunity out there? The opportunity is that, if one is able to bring flexibility, you can also tap the talent pool in tier 2, tier 3 cities, which was something which was being done by large organization in terms of attracting the talent from there into the cities to work with them, or building office space there. But today, this talent pool has opened out to all kinds of organization. So today, I'm a small organization myself, but I work with a colleague who is in Chandigarh. I work with a colleague who is in Bombay, in Delhi and Bombay. So they're all sort of spread out, and the whole mindset that you have to be all co-located in the same office, is not, it gives you that entire space of expansion, right? We look at gig working, right? So, gig working, has come to stages of evolution in the West, but today, even in India, gig working is becoming a reality, and it's becoming an alternative source of talent, right? And this is an opportunity which has opened up for people who may not want to just work or take the cost of permanent staff. You can work with people on project basis. You can work with people, for assignments on contract, because the gig working is slowly getting recognized, and it's only going to gain momentum, right? The other area, when one is sort of really looking at working in this format, is to look at how do you integrate new talent. We are also in a phenomena where a lot of talent is getting virtually onboarded, right? They may not even come into the office space. So for those companies which have decided to give up their office space, it's also extremely important to build an integration plan which culturally integrates a new joiner who probably will not be able to see or experience the kind of way of working if you don't have a physical location, right? And the benefits that come with that. And finally, and this is my last point for this, because each of these are very large and complex points, but it's really about the essence and how do we adopt. Today, it's really not just about compensation or salaries, right? It's not a carrot and stick. And if I was a founder that, I didn't believe that I needed to invest in a work environment, but if I pay good salaries, people are going to work. But it's really about moving to total rewards, which is both monetary and non-monetary. And that's the space where building culture, building benefits, building programs that make an employee stick to an organization. And that's really going to be every company's unique value proposition as to what is it that I'm able to afford, offer as a rewarding experience to my people, rather than just paying salary, right? And that's how, that's is very crucial to be able to sell the dream, to be able to sell the vision of your organization. Yeah.
Pooja, can you quickly define gig working?
Yeah. So gig working is freelance working. So the freelance economy, if you sort of really look at the different countries, in the US, it's almost 40 to 50% of the workforce is freelance. And it's a very recognized form of working, where an individual is not permanently staffed, but he or she is on contract, right? And they can pick up 3 to 4 contracts with different organizations at the same time. So there is no sort of a legal binding that if I'm working for you, I can't work for someone else. As long as there is no sort of conflict, etc., they can pick up assignments and work for the others. And it gives the flexibility. I mean, this was pre-COVID. It was very interesting. I was having a conversation with a company who said that even freshers today who are coming out of campus actually want to work with gigs and are not looking for permanent placement. And this movement had started even before COVID, but it's accelerated and is going to keep accelerating today with flexibility becoming a core. So it's about being able to use the world of freelancers, look at it assignment based, outcome based rather than, permanent. And for the individual, it gives them the diverse perspectives and rich, sort of portfolios if they don't really want to stick to one organization. But there is no legislative, and the conversation that a lot of organizations are having is there is no legislation around the gig economy in India today, and that is something which once the operating model legislation will come, it'll evolve because we are in a transition space. This will then really become a formal way of working. It's already happening. It's happening informally, but it'll gain once we have legislation. So that's really about the gig working.
I have a question.
Yes.
The problem, so the gig economy that people are talking about is quite convenient. You don't have to hire someone on a payroll for maybe an entire year, sort of a thing. But what I find very difficult to communicate is, so when we talk about building a culture, do people from the gig jobs need to be shared what the culture of the company?
I mean that is so let me answer that in a way where you have third-party vendors today, right? We know there are third-party vendors who give employees on contract, right? This was also happening pre-COVID. Now, as part of the contract, they are on the payroll of another organization, and you have hired it from that third-party contract, right? The contractor. There is always that wall which is formed that you can't do everything that you're doing for a permanent employee, because at the end of the day, they should not come back and, say we're entitled to full-time work, right? So I remember, like almost like a decade back when the third-party contract and, all of that was coming in. These were all the questions that we were trying to solve at that point. So with gig workers as well, right? It's not that you don't recognize their accomplishments or if they've not done something, but then, one will always try and build some sort of a distance where, there is that much that you can do for someone who's really not part of your core organization, right? And you would like to do a lot more for those who are part of your core organization. So it's that balancing between, being able to respect both the sides because of the format of work that they're bringing in, right?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so this is an open-ended question. What are some unique challenges that you are observing or experiencing to engage employees today? And, feel free to come on, be visible, come on to the stage. It doesn't have to be chat, but it's a free-flowing open conversation because, I'm sure there are a lot of challenges out there that you're experiencing. Any problem statements?
Pooja, may I share something which I have heard from one entrepreneur. She's a tech entrepreneur. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, so she's actually based in the Silicon Valley, and she has a team in India who, and she takes on outsourced projects. So she was sharing with this work from home, which of necessity has become a reality now for many companies. And she gives Apple MacBook to her employees to work on. She found that there were people who applied and came on board, she's, according to her, just to get that Mac. And then they said, I'm going away to work from home to in Bihar somewhere, in the wilds somewhere. And they just disappeared. And she says, this was a totally unprecedented kind of development, which I am having to deal with today. So, this is another side of gig working and for small companies, startups. And what's your take on this?
Yeah. Again, it's a pain point, and there are a lot of stories there. Yesterday, I heard of a story of a person who's actually employed with 7 companies as of today, and he was found out. Okay, 7 companies. I was shocked that it's possible. But we, again, as mentioned, we are in a transitory phase, and like any time when there was a different way of working, these are going to be the teething problems of moving to a very different stage and format of working. And while there are no easy answers to this in terms of, and there will be people who are going to be opportunists, but when you sort of work with people, there has to be a principle of trust. So there will be those who will be opportunists, and I'm sure there's going to be some loss in the way. But eventually, if we believe that there is trust and confidence in the people that we've hired, and most of them are going to be trusting the process and working, then we actually will have to focus on that. So if somebody's disappeared, you cannot contact, there's no legal recourse that you can take. There's that much you can do. Otherwise, you will have to take a legal recourse and go to court, etc. So, and I'll give you a parallel. There was this, when I was beginning my career, that was the whole boom of when fresher hiring became a very critical part of technology workforces, and engineering campuses were, mushrooming across the country, and organizations, and there were a lot of people who were taking multiple offers, not really joining, etc., all of that. And that was one of the biggest challenges in my early part of HR career. And then there was this huge debate of how people said, let's do 3-year bonds. Now, do those bonds hold in court? There is really, but it was more of a psychological contract, which was tied up with some amount that if you leave within that 3-year period, you will have to return XYZ. So this became a practice that organizations started making to build some sort of a check and balance. So we've, as an industry, we've gone through all of these where, there's been this, phase, and of course there will be opportunism, but somewhere it all then gets settled down to a way of working where you will be able to mitigate risks. So do I have an easy answer to your question right now? No, but I think over a period of time, with gig working becoming more recognized, and if legislation comes in, and for the individuals who are really looking at using that as a serious career option, not as a hobby. When you use it as a serious career option, the way it happens in the West, that's really the career that I'm taking, then that seriousness and commitment starts building up.
There's one more challenge that I just, it came to my mind when I was hiring in my past as a manager in one of the jobs, is that it's very difficult in an interview, even if it's a 30-minute interview, to identify if the culture fit between the candidate and the company is there. So are there any specific questions that one can ask? Because, it's never good to hire someone who doesn't fit in the culture, and then, you have to part ways. So. Yeah,
I mean, there are a lot of, the hiring, one process is that you're just doing a half-an-hour interview. There are tests which organizations do, like psychometric tests, etc. To really put the person into a battery of experience to really look at what kind of the way they're responding. In a half an hour interview, it's very difficult. But if that individual is going to be critical, you need to then invest time in the hiring process. And it will mean that you're taking more time in closing positions and spending deeper time in building more robust processes for interviewing, for testing, for, I mean, I know of even senior executives who have had, who have been virtually onboarded, but have had to go through psychometric tests, references, right? So there are many ways by check and balance, but if you're going to only depend on that half an hour interview and take a call, because you don't have more time, then that's the result if you get. But if every talent that you're hiring is critical for you, then you will need to spend some time, because culture fit cannot happen on a half an hour interview, unless you have a very strong gut instinct and you are able to really, in a very intangible way, this thing you will have to build in the recruitment process itself, ways by which the individual has to be tested, right? So typically there are multiple levels of interviews. There is also, and now these psychometric tests and value-based tests are not just at junior levels, they are even at senior levels, right? Because so you have to pick and choose that what position you're hiring for, how critical is it, and what is the cultural fit that you would like the person to.
Thank you.
Okay. So in the interest of time, let's move on, which is, so to really, today, if you actually see, it's a lot to do with communication, because in this whole remote way of working, when you're not sort of working with people all, in the same place, how do you keep engaged? How do you build relationships? Most of the time that the CXOs and people teams and managers are really spending time to communicate. And over communication is not a bad thing. In fact, that is what is really coming up very strongly, that especially in the times that we are today, it is better to over communicate than under communicate, right? Build in a lot of expert based learning, because people want to hear from those who have expertise. Digital has also come with a fatigue. So nobody wants to just get into a learning program for the sake of it. But if there is something worthwhile hearing from someone that I can learn from, someone that I feel is credible, that's becoming a need of the hour. We've spoken about flexibility, but flexibility also brings in that whole cognizance of personal time. Gone is the time where, a person is ready to work 12, 14 hours, trading off their family time, because during pre-COVID, it used to take 2 to 3 hours to reach an office and come back, right? So an individual's time was nearly, you're out working nearly 12 to 14 times, and you're 14 hours, and you are trading off time from your family, from your hobbies, from today, people want to be doing gardening. They want to be, learning culinary, a whole lot of other aspects of life, because life has become so transient, and the kind of loss that people have seen across age groups, that the need for also enjoying time off has become very, very important, right? And organizations have to be sensitive to time, and they have to be sensitive to aspirations, and be very tuned in, and to people, and what do they need, so that you can sort of risk it. And finally, when we talk in the space of engagement, and in this whole blended virtual, recognition was always very important. And for those who are working in physical spaces, it is definitely important. But how do you sort of really ensure that people get recognized visibly, even in the virtual world, right? And that is something, so we used to have things like corridor conversations, water cooler conversations, right? A pat on the back, a quick, sort of a get together on the work floor. Now, how do you replicate all of that in the virtual world, right? I don't have too much time to really get into how to do all of that, because all of this is a short session, but there are
Yeah,
lots.
Pooja, there are so many, questions that come up. I think we could do a follow-up session if need be. I would like you to talk about ZipBiz and the unique offering that you've developed for small companies.
Yeah, sure.
I would suggest, we'll
Yeah.
questions for now.
Yeah. So let me quickly take you through, when we get into digital tools, it's about looking at, how do you manage teams? And this was really the last, area before we really move into technology. How do you really manage people, manage careers? Today, performance is not just about looking at the process, but outcomes. Because when you're working again in the virtual world, you have to be, you cannot micromanage people. You have to be looking at the outcomes that they are delivering, right? And building spaces to involve them in ideation and incubation. And the last point out here is the mindset of collaboration. While these were great words that one was using pre-COVID, today it's really about how do I collaborate? How do I work with others? How do I bring in a solution which is crowd-sourced, which is discussed, which is validated, and also being able to use digital tools. So that really brings me into the final part of the conversation, which is that, are you, any of you using any digital tools today to manage the people in your organization? What kind of tools are you using? It will be great to hear from you. Uh, of course, Zoom has become a great part of our life. So we are all connected on Zoom. But beyond that, are there any other digital tools that you all are using? Yes, Vanita, would you like to? Slack for communication, Asana for task project management, okay. Okay. Miro for whiteboarding. Yeah, so yeah, so it is technology and digitization has accelerated for all businesses. It's not just about you being a IT company, but it's the use of tools, right? The use of tools for different parts of our life to be able to manage our work. So giving that, as Churita asked me to give a segue, we do have a product which is a talent management cloud-based platform, which is data-driven and it is collaborative. It's end-to-end. It is about managing people in a fairly engaged as well as a scientific manner. The need for digital tools has become that much more important today because people are in blended and virtual formats. There would be organizations who are working physically. It's equally important, but it's gaining a lot more important for people that you have to remotely manage, right? And that's really the power of digitization. And the platform's called ZipBiz. And the conversation today really is not about ZipBiz, but to say that culture is about both the ethos. It's a process to make it explicit, and it's also a system to bring it alive, because as founders you will be stretched with multiple priorities to manage stakeholders and customers, and you would need easy solutions to be able to manage people, right? So that's really the last bit, and I'm sure we'll be able to connect again. But for those who've been asking questions, I will take those questions down from from here, and I will try and answer them to each of you. I know the time is up, and conversations like this are complex and they take some time. Yeah. Thank you, Sucharita. Yeah.
Well, we still have at least 5 minutes left. So if there are questions on, how can small companies manage their teams, would there be any questions?
So I'm looking at a lot of freshers we hired today fear failures and they don't try things they don't know. Most of them don't have the drive to learn new things. We were shocked when one candidate asked for a certificate or remuneration for the interview process as she had spent time on an assignment given to her for evaluation. That's interesting. Yeah.
So Pooja, this solution that you have developed for small companies, like most of who are there on the CWE platform and our membership, does this, include and manage the different kinds of workers who may be there within the organization? There would be gig workers, there would be permanent workers.
Yeah. So basically, one can add, and it's the philosophy of the organization, how much they want to get them involved in the processes. So you can add people who are, permanent, who are on contract. You can even add interns. But what kind of processes and what will you do for them? Will you do a performance management? I'm just giving an example. If you won't, then it's not relevant. But if you just need them to sign in and do a couple of things, that can happen. But if you and give others more access to the rest of the ecosystem, so it's that and as the point of view for contract employees are that they are not really people core to the organization. So you have to decide as the CEO or founder or HR, how much would you want them to be, want to do or not to do, and build that little bit of a distance, etc. But on the portal, any kind of employment status can be added.
So all these kind of different people engaged in the organization can be added with different levels of access, whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Am I audible?
Yes, Sucharita.
Okay, so I was asking whether all these different levels of people engaged in the organization.
Yes, so basically, when you are doing anything that is one is as part of the policy, which is generally for contract employees, that is an expectation set up right in the beginning. What happens is there can be two types of people. One is directly employed, or one is employed through another vendor. So you need to then take a call that who would be given, what kind of opportunity. And this is set up right at the beginning with the employment contract. So even if they get access to the platform, typically they may not, they would not, they cannot exercise the options which are not, which is not for them. So that's where it is. If you just want to ensure that you want to keep a check of the head count to know how many people are there, that is one thing. The other is giving accesses to processes. That is the second level. Yeah. Sucharita, you are on mute.
Sorry. How about a category like suppliers, which is critical for many businesses, especially those
This is not vendor management. This is not vendor management. That becomes a vendor management platform. But this is more for people management. Yeah. So Tanisha, yes, it is, because we are culture specialists, we've been, while it's an HR management, we've also looked at other areas of engagement, and the platform has a very, very interactive and engaging page with a lot of other features to have people build an to have that whole ecosystem and build that culture that you would like for the organization. So it is a people management, talent management platform, but since we are cultural specialists, we've been also very sensitive to looking at areas. So it is a little bit additional in terms of how you manage people. Yeah.
So looking at a small organization, Pooja, what would be some of the typical areas which would need to be managed, which ZipBiz can do?
So basically, you have all of these cultural practices which are there, which is open to any size of organization. That is open. We have some advanced features, but we haven't released them yet. But typically, most of the features that we have around the cultural practices, they are open to everyone. Second would be we are in this virtual way of working. So it's also like a virtual swipe in, swipe out, geolocation of where you are. If you are an organization that needs to track some sort of an attendance, then there are self-service, requests which are there, which are all, which can be initiated. It is role-based. So, there are different accesses based on the role that you play in the organization. So there is an employee self-service, there's an employee help desk, and various other talent management practices, which is even like a Hall of Fame, which is a reward and recognition automation. So if you are an organization which wants to shout out and recognize accomplishments, that can be done virtually. So if you would like to identify competencies for your people and look at what are steps, we have a module on that as well. So it moves from just very basic to many nuances of people management, which is today very critical, given the fact that everything is remote, and many ways of working manually are now cannot be supported, right? And would need to be done in a digital manner.
Thank you, Pooja. It sounds like, it has so many things which come with it. And it may, we may think that, a small company will not be able to afford it. So I remember the conversation we had where you said that for especially those who are CWE members, who are all SMEs,
Yes.
you would have a special offer and a special offering. So this, okay.
Yeah, we have that for CWE, and very happy to activate. And for those of you who want to become members of CWE, get a benefit of the association.
And for your information, Pooja is a member of CWE, so you get access to her as well.
Yes.
Answer all your questions. But yes, thank you, Pooja, for making that special offer to our members, particularly. And we do hope that we will, have a lot of response from those who are now thinking of scaling as we come out of the pandemic. I do see many small companies who have leveraged opportunities which they found, and they are definitely looking at scaling up. And I think something like what you have with ZipBiz will definitely support them to manage their teams, so they don't need to get hassled and can focus on the way going forward. So that's what, is there any last word, Pooja, before we close?
I'm very heartened that growing companies are thinking about culture and how to actively manage. As I said, that things which are, you cannot keep things which are implicit beyond a point, because what is in your mind, people can't read. So you have to be explicit. So building an ecosystem, actively role modeling, creating systems, using tools is the way to really express the kind of culture and the professional world that you want to build. And with things, and especially, and I keep bringing the pandemic because it is going to be a reality for the next year or two, even for us, so there isn't a finite time that we have. So how do we, the lessons that we've gone through, the huge, lessons that we've gone through, the insights that we are building, how do we do things differently? So, it's an invite for every founder and business owner to, be sensitive, be compassionate, invest in culture, because it's better to invest in it when you have time rather than late, because it's very difficult to unlearn learned behaviors. Yeah. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
And with small companies, it's the CEO and the founder who is planning everything. So managing the team, building the culture, and it becomes an immense pressure on the founder. So, I really think, Pooja, that you've done a great job in creating this solution for us to look at. And going forward, I think, Pooja and team, you have planned a free demo of ZipBiz, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I haven't planned. Whenever you let me know the schedule, we'll be very
right. So that means those of you who would like to see a free demo of the ZipBiz solution, please reach out to the CWE team, and then we can arrange it for you.
I have put all the links down in the chat box. So all the participants, you can ping there, and also you can stay tuned to our social media pages as well, because everything will be updated there once page. So yeah.
Thank you, Ananya. And with that, we come to the end of this session. And I really want to thank you, Pooja, for taking up this topic, which often is forgotten by small companies, and highlighting what are the issues that we need to be looking at. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Sucharita, and thank you, Ananya, Ayushri. A lot of, back-end work has happened, and I'm glad that we finally did the session, and I look forward to keeping on engaging. Thank you, Sucharita.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and for those of you who are interested in exploring membership with CWE, please do reach out to Ananya, and she will put you on to our team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sucharita. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.